Hey guys, this is Nick Dixon. Thanks for checking out my podcast. We're about to do an episode with Andrew Doyle. Hit subscribe, hit like, or if you're listening, do whatever. Like it, subscribe, all that stuff. And leave a review. Thank you very much.
It would be.
I'm just really nice. That's what I've learned. I'm going to start my watching. We've already kind of started. Shall I do my official intro?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the show. Thank you, everyone, wherever you're listening or watching this. We've got a very special guest today who's agreed to do the show in its nascent form. He is the creator of the hit parody Twitter account Titania McGrath, which he doesn't want to talk about today. The author of the book Woke: A Guide to Social Justice, also by Titania McGrath, which we won't mention again. Former writer of Jonathan Pye. Writer for Spike, The Spectator, loads of others. Stand-up comedian. Recently appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. So this is a step up. It's obviously Mr. Andrew Doyle. Thanks for coming, Andrew.
By the way, I don't mind talking about those things. I'm just very conscious that I always talk about those things, and I think people watching might get bored.
Yeah, and I did promise we'd talk about different stuff.
Yeah.
Because you've done so many podcasts. And this is like for the hardcore. This would be for the hardcore Andrew Doyle fans. Because let's face it, if they're finding this, they've probably searched quite far, you know, because it's new.
Name.
Yeah, because if they Rogan, people will see you that have no idea who you
Right.
were, and that's reaching a massive audience.
Yeah,
this is going to be for the hardcore Andy
This
Doyle
will be the
fans.
ones who like me or really hate me, and they've just been googling my name to find shit on me.
Yeah,
That's what this.
We'll
will
try
be.
and cater to both.
Let's do that.
We'll give
Easily
something-
done.
Because everyone hates you. I was going to start a sentence with everyone hates you. You were just telling me that
It's
everyone
a bold opening.
You were going to say that everyone hates you on both sides. You were telling me a minute ago.
Oh no, I'm just on the extremes. That's all.
Yeah.
The far left hate me because I'm mocking their cult through the character of Titania, and the far right hate me because I'm a gay liberal who hates racism. So I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
We've been talking about you at the meetings, but yeah, that's a joke. Andrew just said he couldn't get my humour before we were on.
So you're not going to have to say it's a joke every time you joke.
Yeah, I know.
Just so that I can be clear when you're being serious or not.
Yeah, okay, because my humour's quite dry, and I thought you'd get humour, Andrew. But anyway,
Sometimes.
can I ask you one thing though that's more straight down the line? Because I was going to ask you about more interesting stuff, but this is like I've just been really curious about this. My brother, you don't know him, but a few months ago, this would be like the end of 2019. He said, I was talking to him and I mentioned the word woke, right? And he said he didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
And that freaked me out because I couldn't even conceive of someone not knowing that. It was like someone saying to me that they don't know what the word hedgehog means. You know what I mean? Like an English adult male saying, I don't know.
No, it doesn't surprise me.
It blew my mind because, well, my question for you is, because he's like a normal man with a family in a civil service job.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I'm like living on my own as a comedian, trawling the internet. So what I want to know is, who is living in the real world, me or him?
Him,
Okay.
without a doubt.
I was hoping it was me.
No, I mean, I had this relatively recently. I was talking to someone and I used the word cisgender, and they didn't know what that meant either. And of course, people don't know what all this jargon means on the whole. People don't really know what it
Right.
means, you know. I mean, it's only been sort of popularised by publications like the New Statesman and the Guardian. So unless you can afford £2 a day to read those publications, then you're not going to.
Isn't it just if you're on the internet?
Not really. I mean, even on the internet, you don't necessarily, unless you're in that sort of culture war thing, which is,
Am I in that then? Maybe I'm in that. Because I know
Maybe.
everything. I know what MGTOWs are. I know what incels are. I know what groypers are. I know everything. I know what Kumas
You
are.
probably know more than me.
I probably do.
Yeah.
I run a lot of forums. But I know everything because I follow it all because I'm alone a lot.
Right.
And I have a lot of time and I'm just interested in it. But like woke would be like, that's the basic entry level. Like you must know that. Even if you know nothing, you must know
Well,
that.
it's changed its meaning, of course, as well. Back in the 60s or 70s and around the sort of civil rights movement, it meant just being alert to social injustice relating to racism, right? That's all that meant,
Right.
Which is a good thing. And then it got co-opted by this very extreme social justice group who started to use it in the way of just being hyper alert to any perceived injustice, whether the injustice is there or not. And that's where you get all the trouble. That's where the trouble started. And now it's used as a mocking term against the social justice movement, who in turn then accuse you of appropriating a word which is supposed to be about the black civil rights movement, but in fact they were the ones who co-opted it. It's very confusing.
It is confusing, but isn't it also interesting that now it's kind of, you could argue it's a sort of Orwellian doublespeak because it's kind of the opposite of being awake, because
Yeah.
both sides are trying to claim they're awake because the other side is red-pilled,
Yeah,
which is
I
a
know.
Matrix thing of saying, I'm out of the Matrix. The other side saying, no, we're woke. And it's like, no, we're woke, we're awake, we're red-pilled.
So all it is people who are so sort of self-involved that they can't comprehend the idea that someone might think or see the world differently from them. So the only explanation is that they're deluded.
You're asleep. You must be sleeping. I'm awake,
You're
bro.
clearly, it's like when people talk about what's funny and what's not. Like, they won't say, I don't find that funny. They'll say that categorically is not funny. And they hear all these other people laughing, but they can't bring themselves to admit that maybe their particular sense of humor isn't the benchmark.
Right.
It's entitlement. Basically.
It's like you when you're watching my act and you're going, I don't get it.
I didn't get it. I watched it. I watched the whole thing. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I didn't crack
Because other people
smile.
are laughing. You're like, well, it must
Everyone
be something
else
in it.
was howling with laughter, applauding, and
You're like,
that
it's
made me
just-
feel really stupid.
You're like,
And
it's just not my cup of tea. Yeah.
I think there is a market for what you do.
I'm really mainstream, but actually that's a good little segue, because I was going to ask you about the comedy world, because I'm in the stand-up comedy world. I'm doing like just normal comedy. I mean, in another world, I'd already just be massively famous, but it's,
Well, you might still be.
tides
in this
turned
world.
against me. But what I want to know is, without mentioning anyone, is how have you been? Because the comedy world has been consumed by this woke ideology. Is that fair?
Yeah.
They've kind of gone for it so much that like the programming decisions, the content, amongst on the BBC and maybe Channel 4 and things like that, they've just gone for it wholesale. So, and the comedy world, comedians and they're kind of talking between themselves. That's kind of self-policing along woke lines as well. So, I mean, I heard there was a female WhatsApp group, female comedians. I've been reliably informed.
Yeah.
That it kind of tries to destroy people if they have the wrong views, like if they like
Okay,
the
that
Brexit party.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise
But
me.
also women, not just men. They wanted. So I hear they wanted to destroy a woman because she was saying she was a feminist comedian, and people were saying, "What we're going to do about this?" And then other women were saying, "That's terrible. What are you talking about? You've gone too far." And they left the group. I had a friend that was in the group. She said less than 24 hours before she had to
It
leave.
sounds like the Stasi.
Right, but I'm not saying it's just women, because men do this as well. There's a sort of nastiness in the comedy world now, whereas if you don't fit in to the sort of, let's call it the woke thing, whatever it is, you're going to be in trouble in comedy. Have you experienced that?
I mean, yeah, it's a silly question, really. I mean, they all think I'm the Antichrist. So, I mean, but I mean, this is the thing. It comes from a complete lack of empathy and compassion, and that's really the problem with all of our problems in terms of political discourse as well. Is that like that is at the heart of everything, rather than just accepting that some people might see things differently, and you want to sort of get to know why and talk to them about it. You just decide they're evil, demonic beings that reek of sulfur. Which is an easier thing to do. I mean, you said to me, didn't you, the other night, some comedian said to you I was evil.
Do you know what? I've been trying to find out, because I wanted to check my sources.
Yeah.
I still don't know if evil was a surmising, a summary, or a synthesis, or if it was a quote. What I do have a quote for you though, which was that someone was at a party who likes you and sort of gets on with you, and you'll know this person, but he was obviously saying nice things about you, and someone said to him, "Oh yeah, but how can you like Andy Doyle? He's an alt-right troll." So
Okay.
that is what you've been accused of. What would you say to that?
I would
Accusation?
say
That's one of my gotcha questions.
I would say, oh, bring them on. I would say, just Google alt-right and find out what it means. That would solve that one straight away.
Yeah, because the definition is radically expanded to include
It's very clear. Like,
gay left-wing comedians.
gay liberals. Look, so alt-right cannot be used without the connotation of white nationalist.
That's
So-
what it actually means, yeah.
Yeah, and anyone who's unclear about that, just check the Associated Press website, which is the sort of gold standard for journalism. It's a very clear definition. And the problem is that because so many people in the press don't use it correctly, then how do you expect people to use it correctly? But anyone accusing me of being a white nationalist is so far off mark that it's not even worthy of really entertaining.
Right.
But so troll is a difficult one, because again that means different things to different people. If by troll you mean someone who goes online to abuse people, then I'm definitely not a troll. I'd say I'm about as far away from that as you can get. If by troll you mean you're sometimes trying to bait people for comedic effect, then my character does that. Absolutely. But the people that she baits, on the whole, are right-wingers.
That's a good get out. My character does it. That's what Stuart Lee
That's what
does.
ventriloquists do.
Clever. Yeah, it's clever.
Right? But it is true. She does. Sometimes I'll post a thing as her, which is so extreme, in the hope that people will think it's real. But of course, invariably, the people who think it's real are the more extreme on the right, and they argue with her and get angry with her. So if I am an alt-right troll, it would seem weird, because in my trolling, actually the target is the right.
Do you see? I've seen people argue with her a lot. Do you ever find people agreeing with her?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh yeah,
that's good.
Naomi Wolf, the feminist Naomi Wolf. She agreed with her on something. The face of social justice in France agreed with her and retweeted her, and then there was an article, a French article, mocking this person for doing so. I hadn't heard of her because I'm not familiar with the French social justice scene, but apparently she's the big name. So yeah, sometimes it happens quite a lot.
Obviously, when we keep saying her, we're talking about Titania McGrath, but he didn't even want to talk about it. So we're not even using a name.
Look, I feel
but we're
I
saying
shouldn't
her.
I shouldn't have the right to come here and tell you what questions
No,
you can and can't ask.
No, it's
Like,
boring
it's
to always
not
talk about the same
fair.
stuff. No, I totally I'm on your side. The thing is, when comedians call you an alt-right troll, they're not even thinking it through to the degree to which you just thought it through. They're just saying he's saying something different to what you meant to say in the comedy world.
They're just saying what they've been told to say. They're
Right.
just saying, like, they're not interrogating it in any adult way. They've just heard it, so they'll repeat it. I mean, it's like just being back at school. Basically, that's all it is.
It is a weird self-policing thing because comedy was supposed to be about saying what you want, wasn't it? I mean, that's Lenny Bruce. That's kind of what it was all about. And now it's about saying this specific thing or you're in a lot of trouble. And my comedy is just jokes and stuff. I don't really need to, I don't even get into it. But it is very narrow. And you would be someone who, it's kind of like you stick your neck out. You've done really well now because you're on Joe Rogan and you've got 460,000 followers with this account and you've got a best-selling book. So you've kind of like, you almost have to go through that period of attacks to sort of make it out the other side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like a lot of people don't even do the first bit; they won't even stick their
'cause
neck
it's
out.
not very nice.
And I don't like doing it. I don't want to be shouted at.
Someone saying you're evil and alt-right and everything, it's not nice. It's
Horrible.
It's pretty grim. But you just got to ignore them because they're not accurate in any way. They're just behaving like bullies, and you just ignore them and sort of get through to the other side. And yeah, exactly. You just it's not.
It's
really
weird because you're one of the nicest people in comedy, and you're nicer than most stand-up comedians, which is a bit like saying
That's
you're
not hard.
I know it is a bit like saying you're the least slippery snake, but it's I think even by a normal measure you'd qualify as nice.
Look, a lot of them. I've got a lot of good friends still who are comedians. I've lost a lot of friends who are comedians. But
Over
there
this
is-
stuff.
Yeah, but there is a kind of
What happens when you say you've lost friends? That they just suddenly say, "I can't be associated with you."
no. They call me a Nazi and stuff like that. And I think, well,
Oh.
I mean that creates problems. 'cause-
Online or in a
No,
text
face-to-face,
message,
face-to-face.
face to face.
And I
They
can't-
they organise a meeting.
No, it's just
Andrew,
been a
let's meet
few.
for coffee.
It's
They
just
call
been
you
a
that.
few who's done that, but I can't. I'm not going to hang around with someone who entertains those kind of feelings about me. Or has that perception that that's what I believe. So obviously they don't know me very well if they think that. So what's the point in?
And what is their argument when they say that to you?
Well, look, it's ultimately, how can I put it? I think being on the comedy circuit and being genuinely liberal isn't popular, right? So they've sort of embraced this kind of illiberal worldview where, like you say, they have to set up WhatsApp groups and bully people if they say the wrong thing and demand a kind of ideological purity. And that's the opposite of liberalism. And most of what drives what I do is an attempt to restore liberalism and make it popular again. And so, they're not liberal, so they're not going to like it, are they?
Yeah, and
I guess that's just an explanation. Or it's that thing of how reputation works. And going back to the school analogy, you must have known someone at school, some kid at school who everyone just hated. No one could articulate why. They just sort of, I mean, that might have been you.
I think
right?
it was
would
me,
explain
yeah.
a lot. And then when they leave that school, maybe they go to sixth form college or something. And this happened to me. I remember the one kid at school who everyone hated, and then I saw him at sixth form. He was at a different sixth form college, and so all of a sudden, oh, a minute, everyone likes him. People aren't treating him like a pariah. That's weird. Why is that? It's because they've just met him and know him for who he is, not the reputation of him. So I think people just get caught in a reputation
Isn't
which
that
they
weird?
cannot control.
I had that school where people thought I was fat, even though I'd lost the weight. I lost weight. I was like a bit tubby when I was 14. And I lost loads of weight. I was in the gym.
But they
and
still thought you were...
You could see my abs. I had like a 4-pack. Probably didn't have a 6-pack, but you could see like abs. And I would literally show people. They'd still say I was fat.
Because they couldn't let...
And then I went away, got actually in worse shape, slightly worse shape, came back and people were like, oh, you've lost so much weight. It's like, no, I'd already lost it. I was in amazing shape.
So
in sixth form.
you had the aura of fatness.
Right.
Not the actual substance of
I don't know if they
fatness.
literally thought of or if it was just a way of dissing me that the lads would just say, no, you're still fat.
No, it's
like
people,
I was labelled
I think
fat.
that's what it is. I think it's people still holding on to what their perception of you. But it's really hard for people to let go of perception. That's why first impressions count so much, because once you've made that, it's really difficult to shift, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's taken me years to now get fat again and be comfortable with it.
And then,
But,
good for you.
but
This is it. Like, so and particularly when prominent comedians
Thank you.
are lying about you, and because of course on the comedy circuit, people are desperate to sort of be popular and get in and get booked and all this sort of stuff. So then that becomes the defining narrative. There was a very famous comedian who I won't name who approached another famous comedian, a woman of colour, who was performing at our night, and he said to her, this white male comedian, "Why are you performing at a racist comedy night?" Now, that strikes me as really aggressive.
And she said, because I like a challenge.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But did she still do it?
Think about the arrogance of that. A white man telling a woman of colour where she should and shouldn't perform. And someone who's decided that your night is racist, even though we've never had a racist act. And wouldn't have a right, because, racism's not funny. So, like, it's a weird... But the perception is so embedded. And then when someone who's prominent like that makes those kind of calls, then I suppose the minions... just go along with it, I guess. I mean, look, I don't know why. You tell me.
You've done very well with your night, despite that. But yeah, some people, I was told, I said I was doing it, someone said it's a right-wing night. But then I look at some of the acts, I'm like, but a lot of them aren't right-wing.
Most of our acts are not right-wing, and that's largely because...
Scott Capuro's done it. Nathan Caton, I don't think is right-wing. Like, loads of people have done it.
I mean, I could read out all the... I mean...
Yeah, loads of people.
You can't get more than 2 right-wing comics a night because they're just not out there.
Right.
They're just not there. I mean, so it's... If you want to assess it according to the acts that have been on, you'd end up saying it's a left-wing night. But we don't want to be called a left-wing night because we do have right and left.
Dane did it, didn't he?
Who did?
My friend Dane Baptiste. He's definitely not right-wing.
But
loads. I'm just saying.
Name any of them.
I know it's ridiculous.
like,
we could name all of them. But I'm just saying, just for the ones that definitely aren't. I know.
I'm on the left, so how does it become a right-wing night when it's run by left-wingers?
No,
it's predominantly left-wing act. I tell you what it is. It's because we cultivate audiences which are free thinking and they don't care about these tribalistic divisions. So therefore, we have people on the left and the right in the audience, and we have some prominent right-wingers in the audience and prominent left-wingers.
Some journalists, some quite well-known.
Toby Young,
right? Toby Young shows up,
to give you the example, there was the Vice article that someone did a sort of undercover expose of the night.
Yeah.
Which is still genuinely, to my mind, one of the funniest articles I've ever read.
I made a reference to it last time I did it because they were basically saying it was a Nazi night.
It's
so
really
when
funny.
I did the night just after that article come out, and I said it's great to be at London's foremost Nazi night. So it got a massive laugh because it had just come out. I tried to say it again, it didn't get as big a laugh, but it was... They were basically saying it was a secret Nazi night.
Well, that's but what was quite obvious is he'd already decided in advance, probably already written it in advance, and he came in, and he completely misrepresented the night, and he pretended like that there wasn't a gender balance in the audience, that it was all male, and it wasn't. He pretended like 4 of the 5 acts were left wing, quite explicitly, and he pretended that there was only 1 left wing token act. He all sorts of just flagrant kind of lies. But what he did do is he pointed out that Toby Young was there, Paul Joseph Watson was there, and there was one other well-known conservative. I can't remember who it was. But of course, he didn't mention the left-wingers who were there, not least me, right? I mean, it was a weird kind of that kind of weird guilt by. In other words, I can't if Toby Young is at this night. Therefore, it's a conservative night. Therefore, it must be a fascist night or whatever. I mean, it's so infantile. It's like what a child.
I've got some thoughts on the guilt by association, but isn't it? Is it also just the way that you've marketed it? It's called Comedy Unleashed, and it's like free speech comedy. And a lot of people now think free speech is they think it's some sort of dog whistle for right wing, don't they?
For fuck's sake. Well, then that's pure stupidity. Whether they're stupid or not, that's a stupid perspective to hold. We don't mark it as a free speech night. What we said is we mark it as a free thinking night.
Okay.
And but we do support free speech. And what that means is, people will come along and do their normal sets. I mean, it's not stuff that you won't see in other clubs, but every now and then someone will try something that they feel they can't do in other clubs, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people email me and say, "I've got some stuff I want to try, but I can't try it at other nights." So nobody's claiming that this is something it's all dangerous, sort of subversive comedy. No one's ever made that claim. And when we talk about free speech, all that means is that when those things happen, where someone is attacked for something they've said, we will support those people. So when Vanity Von Glow was deplatformed, lost thousands of pounds of work because she performed at the Day for Freedom event, we booked her. That's a drag queen act. When Count Dankula was arrested for his joke, we booked him as well. So we will do we will make those kind of gestures. That's all we mean by that. So this false idea of what the club is from people who don't really understand what it is.
So you'll support the underdogs and outsiders who have been bullied,
basically.
Yeah. All right. And I was interested in is, like, I used to read reviews of your shows before I'd even seen them. I didn't get around to seeing your hour shows, but this was in like Chortle, the website that only comedians read. Yeah. They always sounded really good, and I never went to them because I'm lazy and stupid. I never see.
I think other people do read it, don't they, Chortle?
I don't know. I don't want to diss Chortle, but comedians, I'm just saying, people don't know what it is. I'm sure other people read it.
Because it's the industry website.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I used to read your reviews on there. You used to get really good reviews for your shows. Did you used to do shows that were more sort of obviously left wing, that were more kind of like, or was it just that times have changed? You know those shows you used to do before you'd done Titania McGrath and all that? You used to just do political kind of shows at the stand, and what were they about?
Well, I mean, I've had a mix of reviews on Chortle, from very negative to very positive.
Would they still give you positive reviews now? Because they're kind of a left wing site, I think.
I mean, I couldn't say. I mean, that's
right. No, just recently, like, did your Titania live show get good reviews?
Oh, Chortle didn't review that show.
Okay.
I have no idea.
What I mean is, what I'm trying to say there is, I knew you back then. I was like, oh, these shows sound really interesting. But did you move, or did the culture move?
I think that most comedy reviews are politically partisan. I don't know. I mean, I assume because Steve Bennett sees so much comedy, I imagine he's not partisan in that way. But certainly people like Brian Logan at The Guardian, for instance, he's incapable of reviewing a show without imposing his politics onto the show. So, right. And he has that reputation. But I think, and most critics are like that. You know, like if you go and see a right-wing show in Edinburgh, the right-wing press will tend to give it strong reviews, while the left-wing press will slate it, and vice versa. I mean, it's always pretty predictable on the whole. Like, the reason why I think Chortle's probably immune to that to a degree is that it doesn't have that political part. It's not like the Guardian's on the left and the Telegraph's on the right. I don't think it has that.
I think it does a bit, but
does it? Okay.
But I'm not going to go into it too much. But it is weird, isn't it? Because just doing jokes now has almost become a political act. Because I was at a gig in Cambridge, and I just did my jokes, and they were just jokes. You couldn't say they were political. But a guy comes up to me after, and he goes, "Oh, no, you were good, man. It was really good. It was good to see just someone just sort of. It was quite brave." And he couldn't really articulate what he was saying was it was comedy. Yeah, because everyone else, lots of other people on the bill, he goes, "It wasn't just a rant." He said it wasn't a rant. It wasn't just a lecture. He was amazed that I was just doing jokes, and that became I sometimes wonder if just me, like a so-called straight white man, just doing jokes now. I sometimes wonder if
that's quite subversive.
Well, I sometimes wonder in places like Edinburgh, it's like some of the things reviewers have said about me. It's like I think they're reviewing what I didn't say, and so someone tried to say I had an old-fashioned attitude towards women because I did a joke about how I was engaged to a Coptic Christian, which is a hardcore Egyptian version of Christianity.
Yeah.
And I say in the joke something about. What do I say? I say, you know, they had all these rules. I was going to have to wear a cloak at the wedding. And I was like, I can't do that. It's not my tradition. I don't want to wear a cloak. And she's like, well, it is a very old-fashioned religion. According to the vows, you would basically own me. And I go, I could wear a cloak for one day. Do you know what I mean? So it's not the greatest joke, but if you can't see that's a joke, where I'm saying I don't want to really own my wife, that's the joke, isn't it?
There is an expectation.
I'm not just coming out and making a statement about how I want to own women.
There's an expectation in for like an Edinburgh show that it should be sort of about something, and that it should be theatrical and all that sort of.
Right.
What they mean by that isn't really theatrical. Like on the whole, it should have a political message or send the right message, you know, and that's quite boring to me. And also, I think there are better mediums for that sort of thing. But I think people are. The trouble is there's that disconnect between what the industry wants and what audiences generally want. I think someone who just tells a lot of jokes tends to do really well with audiences, and less so with critics.
Well, they've almost checkmated themselves. I feel like they've checkmated themselves a lot of this woke stuff, haven't they? Films, comedy, they've sort of checkmated themselves into a corner where it's a bit like the Labour Party now, where they have to say something to appeal to their colleagues, but that is by nature not going to appeal to the rest of the country.
Well, it doesn't, does it? Like I love that whenever a film goes super woke, no one goes to see it.
Right. Just Birds of Prey was the latest one. They had to change the title because it was doing so badly.
I didn't know that.
What if I changed the title? Yeah, they changed the title. No one was watching it because no one cares. I mean,
no, it's not even that. It's that no one wants to be lectured by a bunch of Hollywood pampered cunts, basically.
Well, you said it. I'm avoiding the C word, but you nailed it.
Well, we can bleep that out.
No, I've just decided to in my life because I'm a very clean living guy. Don't drink.
Well, you're a Christian now.
I am now, which is something I might talk about later. I was going to ask you that. I don't know if I should just go into it now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah, but I'm Catholic, so we're allowed to be filthy. Like,
I noticed that when I did shows for Christians, I noticed that the best laughers were the Catholics. I actually thought about converting because they're so chilled. You know? And my theory is because of confession, right? You can just confess it all, and then
you've got like there's all sorts of positive reasons. You won't burn in hell. That's another good reason.
Oh, that's good.
You should do that as well. You know, think about it. Consider. We can talk afterwards.
The only thing I didn't is because this might sound. I just didn't want to. It's not my background, not my culture. So I was like, wouldn't that be just a bit weird? So from if my family aren't Catholic, and I don't know, that's the thing that freaked me out. I was like, is it some sort of weird where am I getting it from? Like, I have a mate that's a Catholic, just because like he became Christian later on.
Is it weird though? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
From the inside, it doesn't seem weird to me.
But
I grew up with it, so I didn't.
It's not weird. I'm not saying Catholicism is weird. I'm saying, would it be weird for me to suddenly convert?
Bits of it
because
are
they're
weird.
better at laughing at my jokes.
That's not a good reason to convert. Bits are weird. Transubstantiation is a weird idea.
I wasn't saying the religion is weird. I was saying
I see. Okay.
I would feel weird. I want to be very clear before we get to the tweets. I was feeling I would feel weird to convert to Catholicism personally, maybe just because I've been raised in in the Church of England.
Yeah, sure.
Not raised in it, but near it.
Yeah.
It was down the road. But well, transubstantiation was one of the things about the Coptic religion as well. They wanted me to convert, and they wanted me to say that the bread and wine literally become the body and blood of Christ.
Is that
that's what
a doctrine of Coptic?
Yes. Because I think I said in my
Okay.
show something like they believe that it literally becomes the body and blood of Christ. In the Church of England, we believe Susan bought it from the co-op. That was something like that. Because that's what Church of England. Because my argument was the Church of England was mainly about biscuits.
The High Anglicans still have the Eucharist, but they don't believe in the transubstantiation element of the Eucharist, right?
Right.
So they believe it's just symbolic.
Right.
You know.
And that's the key difference with Catholicism. I can't talk and Coptics believe. I later developed quite a lot of respect for the Coptic religion for how hardcore it is. They kind of pride themselves on they haven't changed in thousands of years.
For me, that is like that's the sort of hardcore principle, isn't it? Like if you believe in transubstantiation, then you're I mean that's very Catholic, because what you're asking, it's such a leap of faith. Because what you're saying is, it still looks like bread and tastes like bread, but it's not bread. Right. So it's physically the flesh of Christ.
I find that very hard to do, and that was one of the main things we found hard to do as Protestants. We were like, not sure about that. That was one of the big things, wasn't it? That was one of the big divisions, I think. But correct me if I'm wrong. But it's a bit hard. I got friends who are Catholics. They just sort of. But the weird thing I've noticed is my friends. I'm a bit like all or nothing. So I've asked friends about stuff, and they go, yeah, I suppose. Like, they haven't thought about it too much. Right. Like I said to some of my Christian friends, do you believe then in the resurrection of Christ? And they were like, I was like, that's pretty important, isn't it?
Fundamental.
I'm the sort of guy, I'll go on YouTube and solve it, do you know what I mean? With 12 hours of research in a night or something.
I know, a lot of my religious friends don't like sort of interrogating it a bit too much.
Because
actually it's quite comfortable just to believe it and not think about it.
No, I have to, you see. I can't let it lie. So, but I don't want to make it about me, because I was surprised to find your mum was a nun.
She was a postulant nun.
Okay.
So she was a half nun. So she had the habit and the get up, and she hadn't taken so she'd started the process, but she hadn't taken the final vows. She
bought the costume.
Well, she was given the costume.
Okay.
I mean, she was living at a convent in Athlone. Do you know where Athlone is? Sort of bang in the middle of Ireland.
Okay.
And she was given and she was there, and it was all set up for her to be a full nun, and then she decided to leave, which is lucky for me, as it transpires.
So she left at the last minute and said, "I don't want to be a nun."
I don't know whether it was the last. I think it was a.
So was she not a nun after that, or was she still kind of a nun?
Well, if you're a postulant, you can back out.
Okay.
I think if you become, I don't know what happens if you. It's like when you're a half vampire. It's like you can still get if you kill the head vampire.
Angel, you mean from Buffy?
I haven't watched Buffy.
Okay.
So that's not a reference that will.
He was like your mum. So, because I was surprised, because you mentioned that on another podcast. I was like, you just threw in, yeah, my mum was a nun, and then you just moved on. I thought, that's interesting. Because someone said to me the other night, I'd like to know more about Andrew. I said, what shall I ask Andrew? They were saying you should ask him more about himself, because we don't know about him. He hides behind it. He didn't say he hides behind the character. That's me saying that now. Right. But you've got this character, but we don't know who you are. I don't know.
What do you want to know?
I just want to know about you, because you grew up. Your mum was a nun, or then she didn't become a nun.
Okay, so
and you went to a comprehensive school, because everyone thinks it's so funny on Twitter. You've had this so many times. People say you're a public school, straight. What's the other one? They say 3 or 4 things that are wrong. Oh, right wing
and Tory voting.
Yeah, and you're not any of them.
No.
And so that's funny. But so you went to a comprehensive school as well.
Yeah, Catholic.
You went to private Catholic. Where was that?
I went to a convent school in Birmingham. I went to a convent primary school, and then I went to a Catholic.
But then did you go to Oxford or something?
Eventually, I mean,
that's where my resentment kicks in.
But
chip on my shoulder.
I mean, look,
the way I said it, you went to Oxford. I just wrote it down, Oxford.
Well, not immediately. Like I did Catholic. Yeah, I did a convent primary school, Catholic secondary school, Catholic sixth form college, then Aberystwyth University for my undergraduate degree, then York University for my master's degree, and then Oxford University for my doctorate. But I only went that route.
I didn't even know you had a doctorate. What was that in?
It was in English Renaissance poetry.
Oh wow.
But I only went that
Really?
route because of scholarship. So
Yeah. No, you're the system working. Gone from comprehensive school to Oxford.
because
That's good.
the sense
It's
of
not a bad thing.
the privilege thing, it doesn't work because we didn't have money. So I got the full grant as an undergraduate because it was means tested back then. In fact, my year was the last year where you could get a full grant, a means tested grant. So if your family wasn't rich, you got everything paid for. And then I got a scholarship to do my master's degree, which I wouldn't have been able to do without the scholarship. And then I got funded fully by the Arts and Humanities Research Board to do the doctorate, which again I would not have been able to do had I not been funded. So it isn't the case that it's like, mummy and daddy just shelled out lots of money. They didn't have that.
No.
So that, but that's the perception,
right?
Because I guess because I speak well,
right? I think that's what it is. But
probably.
It's good, man. This is my own personal chip on my shoulder because I got high grades at school and no one said like go to Oxford, and I mention it all the time.
Really?
I got the third highest grade in the country on my history A-level syllabus. Yeah, on that syllabus, and I've never stopped talking about it because I'm so bitter.
It's an achievement. No, you should be.
No one even said well done except the history teacher. I was the only guy that said well done.
Character building, right?
Not even my family. It's incredible. It is incredible.
Did you go to that kind of school where they just wanted to put you down? And...
Oh, mate, if I tried to explain it to people now, they wouldn't even believe me. Anything good was bad.
Look, I tell you what, the ethos back then for comp schools, this is not a word of a lie. What the head of our sixth form did an assembly for us all, at the point where everyone was applying for university, and the whole point of the assembly was you must lower your aspirations. You just need to stop applying to universities you're never going to get into. Just accept that you're scum. I mean, that she didn't say the word scum, but that was the...
That's so funny. That was an old Richard Herring joke back in the 90s. I remember him saying... What? Yeah, but I remember back in the 90s, that show, Lee and Herring. I remember he came on, he said, now remember, if you didn't do as well as you thought in your A-level results, don't worry, simply lower your expectations accordingly.
No, this is exactly what she said.
That's so funny.
And that's not... That, I think, was just the norm...
Oh yeah,
for the time. So I don't think people now I don't know about state schools now, but I imagine that wouldn't happen now in a state school.
I imagine it wouldn't because of X Factor and stuff. I think people have become more aspirational. It's become cool to do well. Whereas when we grew up, probably similar age, it was cool to not do well.
Oh, I mean,
you just absolutely. Had grunge, then you had Oasis, like cigarettes and alcohol. Is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job? It was all like, why bother doing anything? And it was kind of a cool attitude.
And also, no one likes the kids that work hard.
They hate
school,
them.
So
Yeah, because I did well without working out, so they thought it was funny. Right. But whereas, because I remember someone else got a really high grade, and they were laughing at me, and I said, "What about her?" And they go, "Yeah, she's a swot." So that was just expected. Right. Swot. It's so funny, man. Like even, I'll give you an idea. Even like playing guitar was bad.
Yeah.
You'd think that would even be quite good, but that was bad because
I know exactly.
Because it was just before Oasis, and I was playing guitar, and a lad told the girl who was like a hot girl, whatever, at school, and he said, he goes, "You play guitar, don't you?" And she goes, "You play guitar," and he just looked at me and went, "Sorry." Like he had to apologize that he was like, because it was so bad that I wanted to do something.
I don't think even they use the word SWAT anymore. I think things have just changed.
Well, I spoke to a friend who went to like a boarding school, and he's like, they used to get ties if they did well at things.
Yeah.
And they'd collect all these ties, and if you didn't do well, you were called a shag. He told me, which was bad. Whereas at state school, it was like drinking and football were good, and doing well with girls.
It's totally different.
And that was
the school, the posh school that was near us, the ethos. I've spoken to people who were there. Totally, 100% different. Like, and when I ended up teaching at a private school, I was confronted by the reality of this is a totally different thing. Like when I was at school, we didn't do homework. I remember, I barely did homework, and if I did, I was copying someone else at break time or something. But at this school, if you were behind homework, one or two, we'd have a staff meeting to discuss what's going wrong with this pupil, and that would never have happened at a state school.
That's hilarious. Our thing was just get to the class, ask everyone else, did you do homework? No. Did you do it? No. Good.
That was the norm.
Sometimes we get to class and there wouldn't be a teacher there. There wouldn't even be a teacher there. Yeah. And they just mess around for an hour, and that was it. It's unbelievable.
I almost got thrown out of sixth form because I was so lazy.
Really?
And
you've changed that. You
I
worked
was
hard.
So lazy. I wouldn't turn up before midday. I was just that lazy. And then and the drama teacher ended up picking me up. Like just because I was in the school play, so she really wanted me to.
Oh, to pick you up from home?
Well, I was almost getting expelled.
When did you develop all this work at then? Because now you seem like someone who's crushing it. Like, how did you start doing all this? This kind of sounds silly question. Like, how did you start? Because you sort of ended up doing something so strange and unique. This like satirical character and stuff. How do you go from a lazy drama student to that? Like,
I was just a kid, wasn't I? So I guess like.
Did it start from doing stand up and then you just naturally find yourself writing? Because you've written like musicals and plays and everything, haven't you?
Yeah. I guess it's because I always, well, I always ended up working hard at things I wanted to do, and I didn't want to do schoolwork. So
Right.
that's basically what it is. I mean, if
Yeah.
I could go back now, I
Comedians are
would
people who didn't want to do any work, aren't they?
basically.
Mainly. But you've ended up, I'm impressed by your work ethic because you've ended up doing, you must be working hard now because some people have these ideas and they don't, lots of people probably think they could have thought of the idea for Titanium McGrath, but they haven't actually done it. You've done it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you've actually done it to a very high level. I might ask you this because I feel like I don't want to just be like, I sort of feel like I feel I should be a bit objective. Like one of the like, do you ever think some people
Is this going to be the hard talk?
this is going to be the gotcha moment?
Yeah,
because I was thinking like about the character. Do you ever think it's like what's a nice way of putting this? Is it? I think one of the criticisms we use is that you're kind of just doing that one thing now, and you kind of it might be a bit like it's quite easy to, even though you do it so well, it's kind of easy to take the piss out of this thing, and you're just kind of hammering these people, and it's kind of like it's the same thing, and it's a bit. Has it become an easy thing, even though you practically invented it?
It's become harder.
Okay.
Because the problem with the character is it's satirizing a monomaniac. So the kind of social justice intersectional activist is a monomaniac, and they say the same things over and over again, and they're obsessed with the same things all the time. So in other words, when you create a satirical character, they seem quite one note. Because that is what you are satirizing.
Right.
So then it actually becomes difficult to come up with new ways and new jokes, particularly since I've written a whole book, two books of it now. So actually, in a sense, I don't feel I could. I think it can go so far. It has to develop into something else. That's why I didn't want to do a second book that's just like the first book. Like the second book I've done as her is a children's book, so that it's something different. And then with the live show, that's good because I bring it out, it brings it to life. So it would have to be something developmental. I couldn't tweet as her forever. No.
Right.
No.
But
also, I'm not just doing that. That's what's key to me. Like if I was only doing Titania, it would I think it would drive me to despair. But because I'm doing other projects as well, then it's sort of okay.
Okay. Because one thing I've noticed is now people were not aware of this woke thing, then they become aware of it, and you've identified the problem that lots of other people have. But then what is the solution? Because I haven't heard you talk that much about the solution to it, because what you're kind of doing is dissecting the problem, you're exposing it, you're making fun of it, which is what satire is, I guess. So, but you said on another podcast, I have some ideas for how to solve it, but then I didn't really totally hear them, because the challenge, to me, the challenge you face is, I don't know if you see yourself as like where you see yourself on the left. You still identify as being on the left, to use that word, but because there's the old Tony Benn left, which was against Europe, which you were against the EU, not against Europe, against the EU.
Yeah.
Which maybe you're part of. I don't know if you're a socialist or what. But that's the first question is, where are you on the left? And the second question is, how do you find a solution for the current predicament? Because this stuff's all come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Has it come from millennials having worse living standards than their parents? Has it come from a lack of morality in the culture? And what's happened is, in my humble opinion, we've got a woke solution, which is a kind of false religion, a kind of synthetic man-made religion. Then we've got the Christianity, which people return to, which is the true one. And then you've got some people, and people have returned to sort of hardcore conservatism. People on the internet and in America. So that's one solution. Zoomers have gone back to like full-on conservatism.
Yeah.
And what you're sort of saying is, let's on the left offer something else, but you're going to have to offer something that's going to compete with these kind of ideologies, right? You see what I mean?
I think the solution is liberalism, basically, because I think. It solves the tribal thing, because you can be on the left and the right and be a liberal. We can all disagree about the best way to handle economic inequality and whatever. We can have those discussions. But if we have not got a liberal perspective where we're hearing everyone out and everyone's allowed to say what they think, and we're not opposing free speech, if we don't have any of that going on, nothing will get solved with that. And that's why you're getting all these weird alliances between left and right at the moment.
Yeah.
And I guess the solution is also to just ridicule the extremes and I've said this before, so I'm retreading old ground, but I do think education's the key. I think people just leave schools.
But your friend Douglas Murray said something interesting. He said that he doesn't think people are actually that bothered about free speech. He did say that. It's quite a hard sell in a way what you're doing, because it's kind of like free speech. People don't seem to care that much, and liberal principles. It's kind of quite
well, because no one cares if some horrible person's going to say something nasty, and then all of a sudden we have an option to shut them up and lock them up or whatever. Then that does feel quite instinctively appealing, doesn't it? But the problem is that free speech isn't about what the individual says; it's about the broader principle.
What do you think about? I've got so many questions, so little time. What do you think about the return to like to Christianity or to conservatism that we've seen from, see a lot of young people on the internet. It kind of
Makes a lot of sense.
we've got trad wives now,
Yeah.
which just used to be a normal person, but it now is. It's
Well,
like,
the problem is that what you have is whenever...
Shall I say what trad wives are?
I know what it is.
No, but shall I say for the audience?
Oh,
It's
I see, yeah,
It's
okay.
a thing where they might know, but it's like... the BBC put a thing about it the other day. It was like trad wives, the women that are going back to... And they're just basically housewives. But the BBC put it out like a curious thing. It was like a Louis Theroux weird weekends. It was like a lifestyle choice,
Well,
like
that's because
swinging or something.
Some major journalist said that it was a form of white supremacy.
Well, that's it. And then there was someone I saw reply to this tweet saying this is white supremacy. I'm like, being a normal, like to what people have done for thousands of years is now white supremacy.
I mean, I know it's been pointed out before, but when societies become more egalitarian, when you have governments that push for gender equality more than others, such as in Scandinavia, more people tend to go for conservative routes, and more people choose those conservative options. So there is something more going on here. In other words, the woke sort of ideology doesn't come naturally to people. That's not a natural state of being. People do.
But it must serve some sort of need because it's fairly popular. It's not as popular as it seems because
it's not really, is it? I mean, like it's popular in the comedy world and in amongst TV media and people like that, but it's not common amongst normal people.
No. That was one of my key questions: is how do we solve it? I still don't totally know.
Well, because I don't know. Like,
what do you think about while we've got time? What do you think about the whole gay pride movement and all that? Because it strikes me that it used to be a more sort of clandestine thing, didn't it? Being gay, and it was probably probably quite fun. And now it's
Pride
like
festival. I can't bear Pride. I go there and it's like it's now such a swarm. I don't like crowds anyway. So you go into the centre of London, and it's just swarming with people, and the gays trash the place. There's just so much litter everywhere, and I can't bear all that. And they're supposed to be tidy, right? But also, I don't like the sort of the sort of symbolism of it all. I don't like the acronym. I don't like the LGBTQIA plus stuff. I don't like the rainbow flag. I don't like seeing the rainbow flag. It's a corporate thing now. Like the whole thing is corporations basically sort of signaling how good they are. You go into like McDonald's and you've got like trays with rainbow flags on and messages saying, we like gay people. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you? Like, I would never assume that you wouldn't. But ultimately what's happened is we've reached a point where we have complete equality in terms of gay rights. And a lot of people who go on those marches behave as though there's still all this stuff to be achieved, which there isn't. It's just done.
So what's the point of it now then? If it's been
there
done,
isn't one.
It's a big party. What do they think the point is then? They still think...
they perceive there to be more injustice than there is.
Right.
They perceive us to be living through the most regressive, fascistic time in history. But there has never been a better society in the history of the world to be gay, with the exception perhaps of ancient Greece. Although that was more pederastic, wasn't it? But you know what I mean. Like, so what? There isn't. So it's a kind of delusion that. Are
you someone who it's not like a big part of you? Just want to be like a person and it's just not a big deal to you. Are you someone who would have done more about gay rights if you felt it was necessary?
I've never identified as gay,
right?
Because I don't believe in identity politics. Okay. I think it's nonsense. I think I'm gay in the way that I'm right-handed or I'm 5'10" or whatever. It's an uninteresting part of my, not unimportant, but not very interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. What did you think about when they were trying to teach, or they were proposing to teach gay issues in schools to like young kids and stuff, and some of the Muslim parents didn't love it?
Yeah, well, I mean, in a liberal society, firstly, I support peaceful protest under all circumstances. So if they want to do that, that's fine. There's no harm in kids being aware of people being gay or people being whatever. There's no harm in that either. I think some of the materials do seem a bit weirdly sexualized and needlessly so. I don't think it's a good idea to teach children about 100 different genders when they're 5 years old. My
take was like maybe it was more libertarian, but I just thought, because they talked about it in Question Time a while ago, and everyone's response was just, I really like gay people. That's every panelist was like,
no one's got a problem with gay people.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the whole.
There's like a few people. There are some people who have a problem with gay people, right?
Right.
But they're not considered socially acceptable, are they?
Right. Well, none of them addressed the issue because they had to just all go around and say, I love gay people. Loads of my friends are gay. So no one actually addressed the issue. To me, the issue was, do you want the state teaching your kids about
that's a complicated
sexual politics? Because one day they like gay people, they didn't always. Do you know what I mean? Like they might not another day. To me, it's a question of who does your kid belong to? Does it belong to the government or does it belong to itself and the family? Which is what I say.
I think you need to have a rigorous criticism of the materials and the way in which they were teaching it. And I don't know enough about what they were planning to teach. To be honest, I looked at some of the materials and I thought it just doesn't look like a very sensible approach. To be honest, but you know,
Okay.
I don't know enough about it.
That's fair enough. And you're like, because I'm like trying to just like rattle through things.
Don't rattle. No, honestly, you'd be better off.
Because we've got to go to. Because you've got to go. That's the only thing.
No, just sit back on it and then.
Okay. Because I want to know about. I was going to ask, do you want to talk about the BBC again, or are you sick of that? Because you talked about it the other day on the Moral Maze, but they didn't let you talk. I listened to the whole thing.
No, they did.
You talked twice.
No. The thing about the Moral Maze is the system.
You're not meant to.
There are four panelists,
right?
And each panelist interrogates one witness twice.
Oh, I see.
So you only get to talk on those two. Like
that's
the format.
I don't listen to it, so I didn't know the format. I just listened to yours.
Like, I can't just chip in someone else's.
Oh, I see.
Moment.
So it's just me not understanding because I don't listen to that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted you to talk more, but because are you against the license fee?
I think it's outdated. Yeah, I think it's, and it is. It looks like it is going to go now. I think the original mandate of the BBC was to inform, educate, and entertain. And as I said on the Moral Maze, I think now the education element has been replaced by proselytizing. They want to convert people to this woke ideology, and they are constantly hectoring the public. And of course, a lot of people. If you take the liberal position on this, why should someone be paying to fund an institution whose values they simply do not support? So it's just, I think it's probably years out of date, to be honest. It probably had a point at one point. And actually, one of the major arguments you hear as well, it provides those kind of shared moments that we can all talk about, but that doesn't really apply anymore. It applied when there were 3 terrestrial channels. And that's all you had, and people, and the ratings figures were much higher because everyone was watching the same sort of stuff. But back then, you had things like genuinely kind of interesting drama, like the Play for Today and things like that, and people would watch it even if they weren't necessarily interested. They'd just watch it because it was on. But that doesn't happen now because there's a million different digital subscription channels. Yeah,
well, I think they've kind of done it to themselves because there are people actually do like it. There are a lot of positives about it, or the potential positives, but they've not been impartial, so they've caused themselves a lot of trouble.
That's it. I mean, they make some brilliant programs, they make some terrible programs, like any broadcaster. But because they're so obsessed with the social justice activism, which is what it completely dominates, because it's a largely bourgeois corporation.
Well, to some people, the problem is more the Remain bias. See
the Remain bias was absolutely outrageous. I mean, there's no getting around this. I think the BBC does a pretty good job of impartiality on the news, as it happens. I think when it came to Brexit, they didn't, by no means. I mean, John Humphreys, when he left and he spoke about how the big cheeses at the BBC did not know how to handle this situation. They'd never met anyone who was thinking of voting Leave. The day after the event, they interviewed a guy with a swastika tattoo about his views about Brexit, right? That's obviously not impartial journalism. That's let's try and find the worst possible person to represent the Leave argument. They didn't understand it, and they were very, partisan, and that was bad.
It seems to have confused some people because I even saw a status just before I came out today saying like, hang on, so the BBC's right wing on politics but left wing on its arts, whatever. What it seems to me is on politics, it's basically establishment. It's sort of establishment. They like Theresa May. It's Remainer. It's sort of globalist. That's kind of the. So you could call that centre right, centre left, whatever it is. It's sort of centrist. But on arts and especially on comedy, and obviously because I know about that. But in the arts, it's fully they've bought into all the woke stuff. So on that, they're quite extremely over that side. But that's what it seems to me.
But because I don't think wokeness is left wing. I don't think this is a sort of a...
You think that's just a part of the establishment thinking as well?
Yeah. It's the establishment, yeah.
So it does confuse people because you have all these Corbyn people getting angry. And they had some justification. They're saying, oh, they hate Corbyn, they're right-wing. I'm going, it's not because they're right-wing, it's because they Remain and they want...
Well, Corbyn was anti-EU,
right.
So they were never going to be... they're Blairites, right? So,
Right. But then in the comedy programme, it's so... What do you think to the comedy programme? Because what happened is Ofcom actually did a study a while ago, and the basic finding, as I remember it, was, hey, people like the BBC, we like the news coverage, blah, blah, but the comedy, people hate it, and I said, this is a real problem. And then the BBC's response was basically like, no, it's not, it's good. From what I could, there was that I'm paraphrasing the response, but it was basically that. Because people had actually looked at it. It was like an independent inquiry or whatever, and they're not inquiry, like a survey.
Yeah.
And they'd said, we hate the comedy on the BBC, you need to fix it, and the BBC had gone, nah.
No, exactly. I think when it comes to Well, that's why we don't really have satire, and we don't have, we don't, because everything is so establishment thought and it filtered through the establishment that we don't really get anything that's railing against the norm, And Brexit, I think, is a key thing that has changed everything because because Brexit effectively was part of the culture war, right? I mean, we can say it's part of politics, but actually it's really part of the culture war because it was misinterpreted as being a racist vote, particularly by people at the BBC. I mean, they really, really do bear a lot of responsibility for advancing that false narrative. And you had them like on the day of the in Parliament Square when they left, and they were going up to people saying, "Why are there so many white people here?"
Yeah, Jon Snow. That's
no,
Channel 4.
That was Channel 4. Well, they're establishment too.
Thing,
So Channel 4. I mean, they're not. Channel 4 are nakedly partisan. You had Jon Snow doing that, but then the BBC also did that on the day that we left. And they were going up saying, "Why is it so white?" Now, they didn't do that at Remain marches because you'll find that Remain, that it's all middle-class white people with their frappuccinos and whatever, right? They didn't do it on those Extinction Rebellion marches. They didn't go up and talk about how white they were, although they're almost like 99% white.
Yeah. One answer would be that the country's about 80-something%
That
white.
would be the answer. The answer would be that we live in a predominantly white country. So that's it. End of that. Let's move on to the next question. And of course, it was really baffling to all the ethnic minority people who were there, who had voted leave. Who have been
and you're saying they just moved the camera away from them?
They just moved them away, or it completely erased those people. Like, it's so weird to me.
Something like 30% of the BAME population voted leave.
More than that, yeah. And it's big, but that doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't make sense to people. So they advance this idea that and of course they do. It makes complete sense because the EU's immigration policies are borderline racist. I think it doesn't work as an argument to me that saying supporting the EU is good for immigration. The EU's
it's also not so great for trade in Africa. I've been led to believe, but I'm too thick to understand.
No, that's absolutely right. And you know what they do is they send millions and millions of pounds over to African dictatorships in order to keep people out. Right? It's really corrupt. I mean, you hear this phrase "Fortress Europe." This idea that it's fine, immigration is fine within the EU countries, but if you try and get in from Africa or the subcontinent or something, there are problems.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience, it's not that easy to get an American in the country either. Because,
is that right?
Because the Tories brought in a rule in 2012 to make it, you had to earn a certain amount a year, which I think wasn't that much. It was like 18,600, or you had to have 62,500 in the bank.
Right.
And of course, the reason for this was an attempt to massively discourage. They said they want to get immigration down from hundreds of thousands to the thousands or something like that. Was a quote, and it was. And obviously, because of the amount of EU immigration, they had to cut it from somewhere. So it made it very hard for non-EU people. It might be a different point to what you were saying.
No, but it's related. I mean, there's a confusion because people say that they're pro-freedom of movement. That means they're pro-immigration.
Right, but they only mean within the EU.
They mean within the EU, and people did have legitimate concerns about that. That if you have complete freedom of movement, it can lead to wage depression and it can lead to higher competition for regular jobs, and that does affect. Well, it affects people who aren't the rich, basically, who aren't the sort of the affluent middle class who live in predominantly white areas, but who bang on and on about this issue,
So you were a leaver from the old school lefty perspective, right?
I don't think you can support the EU and call yourself left-wing.
Well, there you go. Boom. Which is funny because so many young people...
They don't know what it means.
They don't get that. Some people I knew were Corbyn fans. They didn't even know Corbyn was a leaver. I thought that was shocking because he's been that way his whole life.
They don't know what the EU... I mean, they don't know what it is and what it does. And they don't... I mean, the EU, it's a corporate trading block, pro-corporate trading block. I mean, you've got...
People got very worked up about a trading block, didn't they?
Well, it is, though. That's all it is. It's just
it's
a fucking
so
trading block. And if you've got... Corporations are spending millions of pounds lobbying for extra regulations from the EU because it forces out smaller businesses. This is not a left... There's nothing... Capitalism is built in to the EU constitution. It is not... You cannot call yourself a socialist and be pro-EU. It doesn't work. It's incoherent.
And there was that odd thing where people thought we got our human rights from there when they based it on our Bill of Rights or whatever.
They even mentioned things like the Equal Pay Act, which came before we were even a member of the EEC. Right. So they just don't know what they're talking about.
Do you think it'll now fall apart? Because... I mean, Italy, I hear, is not too fond of it. Apparently, the smaller countries are not so fond of it. Apparently, Denmark now is really going tough on immigration. Well, I've heard things, but do you think it'll now, other countries will follow suit?
Yeah, definitely. And also, the EU was always a sinking ship. It's got one of the worst track records of economic growth in the world. It was never going to work out eventually. And I think now they've lost so much money from us. I mean, they needed us more than we needed them. And this is why Theresa May was so ill-equipped to negotiate.
This is where I should probably put the Remain argument, but I don't really know it, so I don't really...
No one does.
But it's got very nasty. Even in my family, it's got very nasty.
Well, other than most Remain voters that I know, the main legitimate argument that they have, I feel, is that they've speculated that we would be better off within the EU than out, financially speaking. So that's just you don't know, do you? I mean, that's an economic prediction,
right? Well, an economist on the other side have said the opposite. But yeah, that is the main one, isn't it?
Yeah, but economists on both sides have said different things.
Yeah.
And historically have always got it wrong.
That was quite a strange moment when Emily Maitlis on the BBC said, "Yeah, but sometimes, for economic stability, does democracy have to catch?" She didn't say car out the window, but it was basically that.
A lot of this is an anti-democratic movement. That's really what.
Because there's always that, isn't there? I mean, you can have a fascist government, and you can have the economy could be going great or something, but it's like
I think a lot of the stuff that underlies the whole Brexit vote and the woke politics and what you see from comedians is a general mistrust of the population and particularly working class people. And that's why comedians will say, it's irresponsible to joke about certain things because they see people as just plebs who will hear jokes and become these sort of horrible, hateful beings if they misinterpret the jokes. It's really patronizing. So that's why I don't like it.
They hate working class people, and they're
mostly rich as well because
the white working class people always end up getting it in the net because no one is looking out for them really, because
I think it's just to do with. I don't even think it's skin color. I think it's just to do with money.
The only reason I say that is because who's going to support them? Because there was, poor white boys are the least likely category to go to university.
Yeah.
And then we saw recently that was, I'll probably get the details wrong, you'll probably get it right, but there was that grant that was going to be given to a school specifically for white working class boys, and then the school rejected it because it was too un-PC for them to take it.
Well, I mean,
was it that?
It's just things that we're constantly ignoring facts when they don't accord with the woke ideology. Women have been outperforming boys in terms of academics for almost 3 decades now. But you wouldn't really hear that if you just listen to the tracks that come out on the BBC and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't see it as a race issue. I see it as a class issue. I see it as money.
It is a class issue. The only reason it becomes a race issue is because to even then defend that aspect of the working class, you won't be even allowed to defend it. You'll be in trouble.
Well, that's because of that nebulous thing called white privilege,
right?
And that's caused all sorts of problems as a concept because it's.
I saw a tweet about that the other day that was saying, "Look, white privilege isn't. It's not saying you haven't struggled. It's not saying you're racist."
I know what they're saying.
And then the tweet, the tweet said, "It's just saying you haven't had any disadvantage because of your skin color." I'm thinking, well, those boys that didn't get that grant did. There was a policeman that sued, didn't he, because he didn't get the job because he was a white man, and there was a guy that didn't get in the fire service. He was a veteran, and then there's all my white male friends in comedy complaining, which people have less sympathy with.
Yeah.
But do you think that's a valid complaint, or do you think?
Well, look, I mean, I don't think I've been disadvantaged by being white. No, and I do think you sort of run the risk of then sounding like one of those people like saying, "Oh, the most oppressed minority are straight white men." It's just not true, is it?
Well, it's a tricky one because you always sound like an idiot when you say it. But I know a lot of comedians that definitely feel that they've been told they can't have things because
in the comedy world, sure. I mean,
but that's a complaint that you already sound like an idiot talking about. You're a comedian, no one cares. But it's not a particularly sympathetic complaint, but it's definitely, people have been they've been struggling at this for a number of years, and do you think that's a valid thing that they suddenly can't get on stuff, or do you think it's like?
No, that's true. I mean, that's objectively true, but
And should they complain about it though, or is it just fair enough?
Well, I think no, we should just all be putting on the people who are best at the job.
That's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, just do that. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, at Comedy Unleashed, we just book the acts that we like, and as a result, we just happen to have one of the most diverse lineups that you'll get in But that happens by accident when you go for meritocracy. Not even by accident. It just happens.
That's what I believe in. I mean, that always happened at Top Secret Comedy. It's my favorite club apart from Your Night, and it's. They always had loads of very mixed bill, and it was just always like that. We didn't have didn't have to think about it. The weird thing about that is people don't really understand stand-up comedy in this country. Black Americans are the best stand-up comics ever. They, Richard Pryor, Patrice O'Neill, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock. These are the best in the world. Yeah. Right now, most people say it's Dave Chappelle. Before Patrice O'Neill died, everyone in comedy thought he was the best in the world. Most people cite Richard Pryor in America as the best. It's like. It's a weird thing that we need to, in stand-up comedy particularly, it's just put the funniest people on, and like you say, it'll naturally happen.
It'll naturally happen, yeah, exactly.
That's what I think. But can I ask you this one? Yeah. I don't know if you got the time, but because it just reminded me. What do you think about the late night shows in America, comedy shows being all like totally sort of Democrat? Because it's such an odd thing because you've got like the three. I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't name them. You got all the. I mean, everyone knows what they are. But you got all the main late night shows, except maybe Conan, and what they do, they all have to follow the sort of, it's not even really left, it's just the Democrat Party. Because it's so weird to me because, I mean, Kimmel famously ruffled Trump's hair, not Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, famously ruffled Trump's hair, and that was said to be humanizing him. So then he had to later apologize for ruffling the hair, and he had to do like a photo shoot about how he was against Trump and everything to keep his job.
That's nuts.
Yeah, he did. He came out. It was him and Stephen Colbert had to come out and do a photo shoot, and it was like late night host against Trump or something.
He was a human, isn't he?
You think, but apparently not. But I don't want to say on there. I'm not even going to say. But the point is, no, of course Trump's human. It's crazy. But the crazy thing to me about this is, right, maybe this is just my little point, but you can see where it starts. Like, okay, maybe the right wing was the establishment or something. Maybe it was thought to be stuffy and oppressive. So comedy was left, right? But then you reach a point where they all just pro Hillary and anti Trump, and yet Hillary, we've got the email scandal, we got the fact that she's husband, Bill Clinton's her husband, accused of multiple rape cases. You know, I'm not saying if he's done them, he's had to settle out of court multiple times. We've got the Epstein Association. What I'm trying to say is, at what point does it become a bit weird to just be the comedy shows are all just totally pro Hillary and pro Democrat?
It's weird. It's a weirdness, and also it's another form of establishment thought. I mean,
do you think it starts off somewhere and then it kind of ends up? It starts off, oh, the left is good because of white, and then it just becomes, we'll just support any candidate on that side, and it's lost any kind of meaning. It's not to do with rebelling against something.
I mean, there's no real difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, not majorly. They're pretty close. I mean, Hillary was a pro-corporate hawk. She's very hawkish, and she's not a big socialist candidate. Let's be honest about it.
But they are sort of pro-Hillary. I mean, they might like Bernie and stuff as well, but they're just so. They're so. I mean, even at Saturday Night Live, had like Hillary playing the piano, singing Hallelujah. It was all a bit weird, isn't it?
I think what you're saying is
they could have a go at both. Is what I'm saying, and I could get on board with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But they've just picked one. It's not satire.
It's the same problem we've got here. So yeah, a bit more of a kind of. Let's just mock everyone in power because
right.
It's all very well saying, well, yeah, but the right are in power, because the Tories are in power here and the Republicans are in power in America, but the Labour's pretty powerful too as a force, and Democrats are pretty powerful. These are powerful people, so just go full on, give them all.
And that's the problem you keep running. Not the problem, but the question you keep running into is the woke stuff punching up, or is it punching down?
Okay,
or is it
I've answered that before, but
yeah, you've answered that one.
But the woke thing is the establishment as is. The Conservatives are the political establishment, but even the Conservatives have very woke values. So this is where it gets complicated. I mean, culturally speaking, the woke are undeniably dominant, right? So you can write it off and say, yeah, but the right are in power. That doesn't undermine the fact that we're all still very much under the thumb of the social justice ideology.
Right. It's interesting. And some people, but your response to that wouldn't be. Some people like Peter Hitchens would want to go back to. They would want social conservatism, but you don't want that. You just want liberalism, basically.
Basically.
Yeah. All right. I think we've solved that. I feel like I did answer. I asked you some different questions. I feel like because I promised you I'd ask different questions. We talked about the nun thing, and I feel like
the nun thing.
Some of them I asked were the same old questions. I feel like we did all right. I don't want to because you've got your other thing. So I feel like
no one else has asked me about the nun thing. So that's all right.
And you're an atheist now, right?
No,
you're not.
No.
That's one of my questions. So you're not?
No.
Because I thought you were. Because instead of just saying, "Are you an atheist?" I went, "You're an atheist now, right?" Because I just assumed it.
No.
So what are you?
I don't think I've ever been an atheist.
What would you say?
Maybe I went through a period of no. Because even when I went through a period of thinking, logically this doesn't make any sense, and I just won't believe in the supernatural. But I still had a lingering. Yeah, it's probably real, isn't it? So I don't think I ever. But it's one of those things I don't interrogate too much because I'm fully aware that it's irrational. I'm fully aware of that.
So would you still say you're a Catholic?
Yeah, because I'm so. Yeah, I would. Yeah, because I'm so culturally.
Oh,
I'm so culturally. I'm a bad Catholic.
You can still be mates.
I don't go to church as often as I should, and I don't
This is why I keep saying I'm trying to be Christian because I don't do anything. I don't do anything different. I just believe in God and Jesus, and I'm like, that's it then, I've done it.
Although I feel whenever I do, on the rare occasions I do go to church, I feel really smug about it, which is probably undermining the point, to be honest.
That's right. Why not? But that's interesting. So I had you down as an atheist from some.
I don't think I've ever said I'm an atheist.
Well, I just made that up. Have. Oh, that's cool. That's sort of ridiculous how pleased I am about that. It's pathetic. Just because I don't know. I just thought you would be. That's it. Because I don't know if your friend Douglas Murray is an atheist, but what was interesting.
Now he If I'm right, no, I shouldn't be speaking on his behalf, but from what I understand it, he is an atheist, but didn't used to be. So he used to be. I even heard, and he might kill me if I'm wrong about this, but I even heard that it was reading the Quran that made him into an atheist. I don't know about that, whether there's any truth to that.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is because he has that recent book, which I've still failed to read so far, but
Madness of Crowds.
Yeah, but I know his solution that he came up with for all the cancel culture was forgiveness, and I was thinking,
Yeah.
That's a Christian thing. We already
Well,
nailed
yeah,
that.
but I think he comes from a
Can't
Christian
say nailed,
background and culturally Christian. But also forgiveness is a really good secular value as well. I don't think it's.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We're going to end up. See, my solution has been just go back to Christianity because we're not going to reinvent the wheel. This has been my solution.
I think, but that goes back to what I was saying about compassion and empathy. I think Douglas's solution is always about compassion, and it's always about like the forgiveness and reminding yourself that people are human beings and are flawed, and that's actually a really good way. So whenever you're in, feeling that you should go on the offensive and attack, if you just remind yourself that you're dealing with a human being, it just changes the way you deal with anything, you know?
Yeah, and that is crucial because the online attacks have got so nasty, and there's been a lot of publicity about this recently. It's got so nasty that you've had some horrible online.
Oh, I mean, every day.
I don't know how you cope with it, man, because I get like, if I have it, because I have a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what you get, and if someone insults me online, I just want to just punch them in the face until the pain goes away.
But the way you deal
and you
with
get such bad stuff.
Yeah, but you remind yourself that they're not attacking you. You're not really the target. They've imagined someone that you are, and that person doesn't actually exist. So they're attacking a figment of their imagination. It only hurts when it comes to people who know me, and that has happened a few times. When people who know me turn against me, and I'm thinking, well, what does this mean? This means that you never really knew me properly or whatever. But the strangers on the internet who have created a false version of who you are, having a go at that false version, in other words, arguing with themselves, I can't let that bother me. I mean, it does bother me a bit, but I can't let it bother me because there's nothing I can do about that.
Okay. So you've managed to, because I think for a while you were maybe a bit more bothered about it, but you've come through that.
I'm not pretending I'm not bothered by it.
Oh, you just rationalise it. You go calm down.
You just find strategies to deal with it.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and particularly for people who aren't used to it, because you develop a thick skin around it. But I'm quite a sensitive person naturally, so I certainly don't enjoy conflict. So this kind of, so people behaving like this towards me isn't good for me psychologically. So I just find sort of strategies to ignore it, basically.
It just blows my mind. It's just, I can't, just the idea of you come on, even the mild insults I have, the idea that you'd lead in with an insult to a stranger. One guy, I made a joke about cheese recently. It wasn't my best.
Yeah.
And it was about cheese. And a guy replied to it, and he said, and he swore a lot, and he said, he said, you call yourself a comedian? Can't believe it. And he was so angry, and he swore, and he said, don't give up the day job. I mean, my job is comedy. But I was thinking, well, look, mate, I'm not a professional tweeter. Like, why don't you come to one of my gigs? I've done nearly 1,700 gigs. Come to one of those.
But it won't be about you.
And the anger about cheese, I was like, yeah, it's not my best tweet. I didn't think it was my best tweet. I was like, yeah, it was a whimsical thing about cheese.
It's like that.
But how could he get so angry about cheese? And how could he? I just couldn't believe it.
Well, it's two things. It's like that Ricky Gervais sequence about the guitar lessons, you know, where he talks about how Twitter is a bit like someone seeing a poster advertising for guitar lessons, and they phone them up and shout, "But I don't want guitar lessons!" Right? And it is like that. I'm doing a massive injustice to the delivery there, but it is not. Twitter's like that, where people sort of approach you and get angry and behave in a really appalling way and an abusive way to people they've never met. So you just have to, I don't understand it because it would never occur to me to do it.
Right.
It just wouldn't. So, I expect, I've sort of got those standards that I expect from other people, but a lot of people are not very nice, right?
I feel bad. The only one I've done that I would never attack someone publicly. The only thing I've done is occasionally comment on Phil Jones's defending for Man United. And even those I feel bad about.
I mean, I don't know who he is.
Well, that's the worst I've done in terms of public. And I've felt bad about that because he's kind of a defender that falls over a lot.
Yeah, but look, right.
But that's the worst I've ever done. I would never publicly attack someone. It's apart from those few.
Yeah, but comedians, we do mock people with a lot of money. We mock celebrities. That I think is different.
I did do a Hugh Grant one.
Yeah, but that's all right. Because people who enter into celebrity culture and celebrity life are aware that they're going to be mocked by comedians. Isn't that part of that's not quite the same as just choosing some stranger on Twitter and just throwing abuse their way, which is what a sort of someone who hasn't developed beyond the stages of adolescence would do.
So do you think you're fair game now because you're a big star now?
But I'm not and I'm not famous. So no, I don't
You're
think
sort of famous now.
No, I'm not.
You've been on Joe Rogan Experience.
Well, maybe people who watch Joe Rogan will know who I am, but no.
Okay.
In fact, because loads of the comments were like, "Who's this guy?"
Titania's famous though. Does
Fine,
she
send
does she
abuse at
deserve
her.
abuse? Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, maybe I'll end that because you got to go. But it's like, to me, the thing is, because this podcast is all about loving people. The trick is not to end up hating, because they come at you with hate, and my response is anger, and I want to punch them in the face repeatedly. I can't because they're just on the Twitter, and it's a crime. But the trick is like not letting haters trick you into hatred. That's the hard part to actually.
Because if you respond in kind,
correct,
then that's
and Yoda knew that, and Jesus knew that. And it's like, hatred leads to, the dark side, basically. All that
leads to hatred. All of
leads
that.
to suffering. Exactly. So that's the trick in it. How can I? But I still got to do it with like 2 tweets in a month that are nasty. You have hundreds a day, not hundreds a day, but quite a lot.
I'd say.
And only a certain percentage of them are me. So you've got all those.
Exactly. But yours I know about. I know your sock puppet account. You should do what my friend Lisa does. She says that she treats people on Twitter like NPCs, like non-player characters in a computer game. And therefore, she's one of the best. She just doesn't.
She's so funny
by any of it.
It just doesn't bother her.
No.
And she treats them just like you're just a bot.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good.
And she, she does go back at them, but she's always funnier than them. That's the thing. And that's
Well, you always win as well in these. You pretty much win, don't you? In these exchanges.
I just don't rise to it. I don't insult back. I just try and get them to clarify their position, like you do with a heckler. If you get them to talk a little bit more, and clarify, they end up just making a fool of themselves. So
yeah,
All
right. Thanks for coming. What are you going to do? What are you doing next? What are you doing what's your next? You're doing that tour with Douglas Murray.
So I do the tour with
and then
Douglas.
You've got another thing happening.
Well, okay. So I'm touring the Titania McGrath show that I did in Edinburgh. So that's going to be in April. I've got the tour with Douglas in May and June. So that's quite nice because the Titania one is sort of satirising the woke culture, and then in the tour with Douglas, we're discussing it, and we want to talk to people. So the whole second half of that show, after the interval, will be Q&As. And we want to be challenged, and we want to try and work through some of the ideas, and I think that'll be really fun and interesting.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
And then I've just written a new Titania book. I'm working on a book about the culture war, which would be a serious book that I'm writing for myself. I also am writing a new musical, which is on in August, so I need to finish that at some point.
This is what I mean, man. You're crushing it with you've got so many projects and the discipline, the work.
I don't feel...
But you just like doing it, so it's easy. Because I hate writing. Producing enough material is the hardest bit for me in comedy.
I actually feel like I'm not working hard enough.
Really?
I really do. Because it's very easy for me to waste time. I had to delete... I had this game on my phone called Robot Unicorn Attack 2. And I honestly, I had to delete it.
It's better than the first one, yeah.
It is better than the first one. No, I used to have the first one. I had to delete it because it was taking up hours of my life every day. I'm not kidding. Hours of my life. So I just got rid of it. And
it's tricky for you because your job is to be on Twitter in a way, which is a time waster for a lot of people. But it's almost your job.
One day, though, I want to get off it entirely. I hate it. But I sort of need to be on it. So that also uses up a lot of time because you have to be sort of on top of stuff. And you have to, like, a lot of the things that Titania tweets about will be things that I've read on Twitter myself. So if I'm not reading it, I'll probably miss out on stuff.
Yeah. You've got to follow everything, haven't you?
And it sells tickets and things like that. And it lets people know about the shows and stuff. So in that sense, it's positive, but I don't enjoy that aspect.
It's a necessary evil, isn't it, Twitter? But
exactly.
Thanks, man. That's cool. You're doing all that stuff. You're smashing it. And thanks for coming on here because we don't know. This is just a new podcast. We don't even know what it is yet. It's just you in front of a picture of my face. And
I like that.
And a purple curtain we got from Joe Rogan and some plants. But I think this was fun. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Nailed it. Done. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hit subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, or if you're listening to the audio, give a nice review and just tell your friends.